If we could talk to the animals, learn all their languages, maybe take an animal degree. If I conferred with our furry friends, man to animal, think of the amazing repartee. If I could walk with the animals, talk with the animals, grunt and squeak and squawk with the animals, and they could talk to me.
Hello and welcome to Pet Watch, a monthly program about your Williamson County Animal Center. My guest today is Mark Basenberg. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Debbie.
We are here today to talk about volunteers at the shelter. Mark is the Community Relations and Volunteer Coordinator for us. And just to start things off, Mark, tell us, what are your latest statistics? How many hours and how many people are volunteering now at the shelter?
Well, I just finished figuring all that out for the month of March, actually, and so that's the most recent report. It was really pretty exciting because, you know, I've been saying we have about 300 active volunteers. That's my email list that people have been there during the last 6 months or so. But in March alone, we had 170 different volunteers. They worked 1,260 hours or something like that for during the month of March. So that, you know, that actually translates into the equivalent of 8 full-time employees.
I was just getting ready to say the shelter itself only has 20 to 22 total employees, including part-time.
Right.
And so the volunteers do fill quite an important role.
Oh man, it just shows you the importance of their involvement, and they're just such a key part of what we do. We couldn't do it without them.
We sure couldn't. One of the things the volunteers basically, the most important thing I think they do is socialize the animals.
I agree.
They socialize with the animals. Without the volunteers coming every day, the dogs wouldn't get out as often.
Right.
And the cats wouldn't be socialized and allowed to play in the open play area on the patio. That's basically very important because otherwise the animals are inside all the time.
Yeah, I mean, when we tell the orientation classes that even though we're so much better than most shelters in that our dogs are getting walked probably an average of 6 times a day. But that's still, let's say they spend 2 hours outside versus, you know, the other 22, they're basically in a 4x8 kennel, and that's the dogs. And then, of course, the cats don't get as much, you know, free roaming time as that. But still, I mean, without the volunteers coming in to give them that outside time and helping them interact with other people, other animals, it just, you know, there would not be nearly as adoptable as they are.
Sure, that's the end goal.
Yes, that's
find
it.
the best possible home, the quickest possible time, so that the shelter time is minimized.
Exactly.
And then while they are there, because some animals stay 2 days and some stay 6 months, and we've had one stay, I think, close to a year.
Over a year.
Over a year. So hopefully their term at the shelter is shorter than that.
Yeah.
But that's the goal, is that by interacting with humans on a daily basis through our volunteer program, they learn how to behave.
They do. You know, there's a good example of that. We did just yesterday there was an adoption, a dog named Peaches. Peaches has not been with us too long, maybe 3 or 4 weeks. The first time, I walked her probably the second day she was here, and all she wanted to do was go get under the bushes and hide. She was just scared to death and had never been on a leash before. And, you know, she left yesterday and she's doing a nice stay on command, and people are giving her treats, and she was just so much more adoptable because in just that 3 weeks or so, the amount of work that the volunteers did with that dog, it's amazing.
Wow, and you attribute that to all the volunteers.
Oh yeah.
They're quite serious sometimes. It's not just a happy, let's go walk the dog. It's let's walk the dog properly, and those are things that we'll get into.
Right.
So they work with us, and they also interact when people come to adopt, like when you adopted Peaches. The volunteers were on hand, right?
Oh yeah, some of them love that, and we encourage that. But on the other hand, you know, if you're an introverted person and you really don't want to interact with people, then you know, we try to accommodate that. You know, so you kind of, if you become a volunteer, you kind of gravitate into the role that you're comfortable with.
Right, and some are comfortable with interacting, and they want to say goodbye when their favorite animals get adopted.
They do. It's very important to them.
Now, let's talk about some of the jobs if a person were to volunteer to work with dogs or cats. And now we do ask people to decide which one or both they'd like to do. There are a few that do both, but most people gravitate toward dogs or cats.
Yes.
When you were first on this program, I think over 2 years ago, you were getting your feet wet and figuring out what all volunteers could do, and things have evolved quite a bit in those 2 years.
They have.
What are some of the primary roles people do when they volunteer with dogs?
You know, by far the largest number of people just come in and walk dogs, but walking dogs, it's a controlled walk, as you say, and we offer classes from time to time to teach people to, gain control of the walk, we call it. So take control, wait at the kennel door until you have the dog's full attention. We don't like to see people, just being pulled out the door at a 45-degree angle, 20 miles an hour by an out-of-control dog. That doesn't do the dog too much good. So we try to teach our volunteers a more constructive way, and a lot of them have really, taken to it and have just become. It's amazing. I'm especially proud of some of our. We have volunteers that are like 15 years old. Our minimum age is 14. We have some 15-year-olds there who just have. They just have God-given dog handling
they have
skills.
A gift.
I mean, it's amazing. Yeah.
They're very mature, and when they come around, it's just so exciting to see them.
Yeah.
You tend to say what they say to you is important, and you see them as a peer, because sometimes our volunteers will come in and say, this dog has a little limp, or he's acting different today. What's going on? And maybe they'll ask for a vet check, and that's important. And then they'll say, well, he keeps jumping out of the fence, so let's put a sign on so the next person that comes along.
Right.
So each dog gets a lot of individual attention, and quite a profile can develop about their behavior.
We know them well, and we encourage our volunteers to take dogs away from the shelter, and some of them have really taken to it. They do hikes. They organize hikes, and they'll take out 5 or 6 dogs, and they'll go to some of the parks in Franklin, and then they always like to conclude by going to Starbucks and getting what they call a puppuccino. I think that's like whipped cream in a little cup, but
I think the dogs like it.
The dogs love it.
Yeah, that's wonderful that our volunteers would take it another step and take a dog off premises and let it socialize it in the world at large. Let it walk down Main Street. Let's see how it behaves. And they're functioning as ambassadors for the shelter.
Totally.
When they do that. If you see one of them around town, they might have a little Adopt Me flag on the leash. And it causes people to ask questions.
Yeah.
And where's the dog from? Is he really available for adoption? What's the name?
Yeah.
So when someone other than shelter staff is there, and it's a person from the community that basically endorses that animal for adoption. Now, a few of our volunteers help in testing our dogs from time to time through the Caninality program.
Right.
And that's where we're trying to find out what about the dogs.
It's basically a personality test. Our goal is to always match the animal, cat or dog, with the appropriate home for its personality, lifestyle. For example, if you have an intelligent, high-energy dog that needs a job, like a border collie, let's say, which are famous for agility tests and stuff like that, you don't want to adopt it into a home where they're in an apartment and they work 12 hours a day.
He's not going to be happy, crated, and
not going to be good for anybody.
His instincts will be totally held back by that environment.
So that's the purpose of the testing, and we have volunteers who do the caninality testing, and we have volunteers who do the felinality testing for cat personality.
Well, let's talk about cats for a minute. Now, I think 2 years ago, the cat volunteer program was basically non-existent.
Pretty
it wasn't
much.
well defined.
There were a small number of people who came in, and those people still come in. But 2014, one of our goals for the beginning of that year was to improve the cat volunteer program. We just needed to get more volunteers involved, because I think we probably had 5 people, that were regular volunteers at the beginning of 2014. One thing we did was we separated, beginning in January of 2014, the orientation classes. So we now have a dog orientation class, a cat orientation class. So right out of the gate, that enables us during the orientation to drill down more into what the job really entails, and full disclosure on the front end, what people should expect from the job. I think that more than anything has really brought the cat volunteers into the fold, because now we have about 65 cat volunteers.
Wow.
And again, going back to the active, like say who's been there within the last 3 months, I think since October 1st, about 50 people now
Wow.
have been in. 50. I mean,
That's amazing.
It's been remarkable.
And I would attribute some of that to Stephanie Carmichael, who's a volunteer herself.
Yeah, that's right.
Who saw a need and said, "Can we structure the cat volunteer?" And we said, "What do you mean structure?" And she said, "I'll draw it out on a poster board.
Right.
What you need to do when you come in here. How do you sanitize the toys? What do you clean with? What's the best thing to do here and there?" And it gave the volunteers a pattern, a work pattern to follow when they come in.
It did.
And Stephanie was great at that, and that was volunteer input. We would never have made that sign if it hadn't been for her.
Right, totally.
And I think it's easier to volunteer when you know what to do.
And raise the comfort level. Plus, it's better for the animals because, you know, there's no doubt that the improved protocols and procedures that the volunteers have to follow now has been a major factor in lowering the cat euthanasia rate from 2 years ago. It was about 40%, I believe, 35 to 40%. Now it's about 4%. So, I mean, that's a direct translation into literally hundreds of cute little fluffy lives.
Yeah.
I mean, that are
It makes a real
being
difference. And it does with illness, which can spread so quickly, upper
Yeah.
respiratory illness, which can break out unexpectedly. But
Yeah,
when the volunteers are there on a daily basis, that's more eyes on each animal, and
Right.
they see changes in the cat's health or behavior, they can get treatment for it. So now I think people who come in our shelter will often see volunteers in the cat room on a Saturday, especially when we're busiest, just helping facilitate adoptions. And that's important.
It makes such a difference. You know, a couple of years ago, about the best we could do was, do you want a house cat or a barn cat? I mean, that was kind of it. Now it's like those volunteers know those cats, they know the unique personalities, and they strike up conversations with the potential adopters, and they just do such great matches. It's really fun, and it's fun for everybody. I mean, I get so many compliments on our volunteers from the adopters that say, "Oh, that, you know, Bethany or Stephanie or whoever, you know, Michelle, whoever was in there working with them, just did a wonderful job of matching them up with the right kitty."
It's hard to get to know an animal in a short time, and then not being able to take a cat out for a walk like you do a dog and interact with it.
Yeah.
We now have a cat visitation room inside the adult cat kennel area. It's a nice little small room where you can get the cat out of the kennel and go in there and interact with it. Plus, there's the catio, which is a patio for cats, which is a screened-in area, and the cats love it out there.
Yeah,
they get
do.
in the sun, they interact with bugs and butterflies and flowers and that kind of thing, and they can see beyond the kennel, and sometimes their real personality doesn't come out until, just like a dog, until you get it outside of a fearful situation.
Yeah, you just have to, and it's I've discovered cat people are much more patient than dog people, as a general term. You know, they'll take a cat home, and they understand that a cat might hide for the first couple of weeks at home. It's in their home. Dog people aren't nearly that patient, which is frustrating, but you know, but the cat people understand that. So,
two very distinct species of and different habits. Cats are fairly quiet. Dogs are kind of in your face, giving back affection.
A lot are.
Yeah,
yes.
a lot are.
Yeah.
Not to categorize either one, but we try to have pets of all kinds. We have little tiny kittens who haven't developed a personality yet, to a 12-year-old cat that somebody turned in that's very affectionate and always lived inside. So there are different needs with the cats, just like there are with the dogs. Now, do they test the cat personalities as well?
They do.
Okay.
That's the felinality testing, so they do that.
And then they categorize you as active.
Yeah,
it's kind of a scale of
three basic colors, and then you have subgroups within those colors. But the important part is the three basic colors, you know, which is purple for the less active, orange for sort of the middle. Where
Middle.
most of them are, and then green for the more super active. You see a lot more green dogs than you see cats, I believe.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Now we have our cats in 2 of the Hometown Pet stores,
Right.
the one in Fairview and the one in Franklin, and our
Right.
volunteers also go out there.
They do. They're part of our contract with Hometown Pets means we go out there and visit at least once a week, and it's not always staff that goes out and visits. It's our volunteers that goes out and visits and checks and make sure the folks out there see if they need anything. Be sure they're familiar with our adoption processes and paperwork, and do they need anything from us. So yeah, that's yet another volunteer job.
And they're there on a regular basis, whether we're having a dog event there or not that day.
Exactly.
Yeah. Talking about events, I think last year we had like 35 outside events outside the shelter, where we went and took our animals either in our mobile unit or in our vans to a place of business, a vet's office, a parking lot, festivals, and we're entering that season again this year.
We are.
But we couldn't do it without our volunteers.
Right.
We talked a lot about dogs and cats, but I want to get back a little bit to the day-to-day operation at the shelter. And we have 2 ladies who come there almost every day, and they're basically the greeters.
The hometown heroes you're speaking of.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, they are the greeters, and we are trying to increase that program because there's 2 of them now, and they're there almost every afternoon, Carol and Mary, and they work, a lot of hours every month, 60 or 80 hours every month. And we need a few more people to do that, so I've been recruiting, and we're going to be trying to build, because our goal is to we'd like to have a greeter there at least during all of our peak hours, which means, say, between 12 noon during the week and closing, 6 o'clock.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't think we could do an adoption event outside the shelter without Mary or Carol, because I know we always say, who's coming, Mary or Carol?
Yeah.
Because we so depend on them. They know the ins and outs of everything, and they are such a supplement to us, and to dedicate all that time, they're invaluable. So sometimes when you come to the shelter, you may be greeted by a staff member, and you may be greeted by a volunteer. So
and you may not know.
tell them you may not, but we sure appreciate them, and I know the public does too. And the people who quietly come in at 7 a.m. and walk dogs in the rain, sleet, snow, and never miss. I think we had an ice storm, but we had a guy there who showed up in the ice storm when the shelter was closed.
Steve Porth is his name.
Steve,
He came over there in the ice storm. He does live within walking distance and was able to get over. Walked every single dog in adoption by himself.
Wow.
Wouldn't leave until they all got out. And that's like
wow.
about 40 dogs.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's an
That's amazing.
awesome guy. Yeah.
That's amazing. We do have an area to walk the dogs behind the shelter. It sort of circles through the woods there at the corner of Hillsborough and Mac Hatcher. When you're sitting at the light and you look over and see that little grove of trees, we have a nice little outdoor path there, and we have play areas outside dedicated to shelter animals, right?
Yes.
We have a large run where they can play and interact with adopters.
Yep.
On Saturday when we're really busy, which always seems to be our busiest day of the week, right?
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
People are off work, they have more time, they bring the whole family out, they take dogs in and out. A lot of times our volunteers are outside with their favorite dogs on a leash talking to adopters.
We encourage that because if you think about it, when they come in, the way a dog is going to look to a potential adopter when you're looking at it behind wires, when it's still in its kennel, versus if they're out on the end of a leash outside, the way it's going to look when they get them home, it's just all the difference in the world. So when we do the adoption events and the busy times like on Saturday, we strongly encourage our volunteers to come out, as many as can, and just pick your favorite dog or whichever one you want to have and be outside with it and go sit in the shade and just show people how approachable and the true personality of the dog. And it just makes all the difference in the world to improving that dog's chances of getting adopted.
Right. It's a wonderful thing to walk up and see them all sitting under a tree or playing in the swimming pool.
Oh, it's awesome,
and trying to learn, trying to help share what they've learned about each dog with the public.
Yeah, it's just the more information you can give to people, and the more you can then have a conversation with the potential adopters about what their lifestyle is like. It just helps with the adoptions.
Sure. Now, you mentioned that not everybody wants to walk a dog or socialize with a cat. There are lots of other things around the shelter that our volunteers help us with. One of those is Fridays we try to get our dogs a bath that are going out to outside events.
Yeah.
And any other time an animal comes in with a special medical need or in need of a bath, to determine how to brush them out or how to get them healthy again, our volunteers go right in there and bathe the animals, right?
They do that. We've got a professional grooming bath, and there's always a dog that needs a bath, isn't there? So yeah, so it never hurts. The more they can come in, and they just have to check the medical records and be sure it hasn't had spay or neuter surgery within the last 10 days. And then other than that, they're pretty well. Come on in and clean them up.
And it means they look their best if anybody comes in to adopt them.
Right.
Now, another thing people can do is to volunteer is to foster an animal. That's a little bit deeper involvement. What does fostering involve?
You know, the primary foster involvement is in the season that's coming upon us now, kitten season. Because we get, we take in, during the wintertime, we take in 20 cats a month maybe. Between, May, June, July, August, we averaged last year 225 every month. Most of those were kittens because, unfortunately, people just don't spay and neuter like they should, but I guess that's a topic for a whole nother show, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
But the kittens come in and, we really need fosters, and we have a lot of fosters in, but we want to get the kittens, if they come in, say they're a week old or 2 weeks old or 4 weeks old, we want to get them out of the building. They're not adoptable at that stage. We want to get them out of the building for their health and socialization.
So they're too young to be adopted.
Yeah.
Because they're too young to be taken from their mother. And we also have mother cats with kittens that you might take the whole kit and caboodle, no pun intended, home and commit to caring for the mom and the kittens.
Yeah.
As long as she's feeding them properly, they'll be fine.
And dogs too, because that's kind of the big kahuna of foster commitments, because that's a big deal. If a very pregnant dog comes in and we need to foster to get it out and have its puppies, and we've just had 2 or 3 of them.
We had a rash of that in the last few months.
Yeah.
So please spay and neuter your pets.
That's a big commitment. It's a big 6-week, commitment, but it is. But yeah, I mean, and just fostering dogs to get them into a home environment for a weekend is encouraged, just to give them a break from the shelter. It's a stressful place for dogs and cats, of course.
And we also have kittens that are abandoned. The mother is lost or deceased or found dead, injured, and the mother cannot feed the kittens. And sometimes they're tiny newborns that have to be fed with a dropper and then a bottle. That's even a more of a commitment to bottle feed kittens. And we recently bottle fed 2 puppies and got them healthy.
Yeah.
So that's another level of commitment. And anyone who's interested in being a foster should come and talk to Amber Mears, who is our foster coordinator.
Yes.
And let us know what their skills are, what their experiences are with animals. And Amber will have some questions and maybe do a home visit and then approve that person for fostering.
Right.
So it's important if anybody's interested in doing that. And people might find that more fulfilling and convenient than coming over to the shelter to walk dogs every day.
I especially recommend that when I do the cat orientation classes, because so many younger girls are very interested in being a cat volunteer, but they just can't follow our protocols in the shelter. But if the parents are willing to help them, fostering young kittens at home is a perfect opportunity for those girls to
They
get
learn
involved.
a lot, I'm sure, and so does the family.
And
Let's talk about becoming a volunteer very quickly. You have an orientation class for your first step, and you have that each month. You have a cat class and a dog class.
That's correct.
Dogs will be May the 9th. We're having it on a Saturday at 3:30, and cats will be May 28th on a Thursday at 6:30 p.m. And to go online at www.adoptwcac.org and click on volunteer.
Yes.
And sign up for the orientation class. Be there. What is that? You have to lock the doors out of courtesy of the people that come.
Once we start the class, because we do it in the front lobby there, and if if you're late, it just disrupts the whole flow of the class. And plus, I mean, we only ask you to stay about 45 minutes to an hour. We consider every minute that we spend, we're imparting important information to
Right.
you, and if you're going to come in late, then come next time.
And that's a group setting, and then the next step is a one-on-one training with an experienced volunteer.
Correct.
And then you're assigned a color of apron based on your level of experience.
Well, it's always a red. Yeah, everybody starts
Everybody
with a
starts
red.
as red, okay. And then you can progress after serving a certain number of hours to other levels.
Yes, and you can read all about that on the website. Our volunteer handbook is also available online, so you can read all about the whole program
Well,
there.
I appreciate all your information today. I think people now realize that it's not just, can I come walk some dogs? That's not the program. So
That's not it.
It's
And-
very structured for
yeah.
the safety of the person and for the animals.
Absolutely.
So we sure appreciate everything our volunteers do, and
We do.
all that you do with them. And commitment is really the key.
It is.
And you have to be a minimum of 14 years of age?
Yes, you have to be 14. If you're below 14, you can come with a parent or guardian, but the parent or guardian is the trained volunteer.
Okay.
The under 14 is really not a volunteer. They're a apprentice, an observer, or whatever.
Okay.
So it's strict, but
it works.
It just has to be.
It works.
Yeah.
And they have to come every time. It's not just to the training, but if they're under 14, they have to be the volunteer. The adult does. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We appreciate that, and so anyone that wants to volunteer should go on our website and sign up for those May classes. I want to go over a couple of events happening in May. On Saturday, May the 9th, we'll be having an adoption event at Woodland Middle School from 10 to 1, and then at Hometown Pet Store in Franklin that same day from 11 to 3. And on Saturday, May 16th, we'll be at the Nashville Paw Cover Dog event at Lenox Village Town Center. That's on Nolensville Road, just across the Davidson County line. That's the 16th of May from 1 to 4. That's a big fun event with a lot of vendors and time for people to bring their dog out and dress them up and have their photo taken and possibly be on a future cover of Nashville Paw magazine. So that should be a lot of fun. Then on May the 25th, on Monday, we'll be closed for Memorial Day. And on Saturday, May 30th, we'll be at the Holistic Pet Store in Franklin from 11 to 3. I want to thank Mark again, who's our Community Relations and Volunteer Coordinator for the shelter. We are located at 106 Claude Yates Drive, right next to Franklin High School, and we're open for adoptions Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Saturdays from 11 to 3. You can like us on Facebook or stop by and see us sometime. Take a tour of the shelter. Come see what we're all about over there, and you'll probably catch a volunteer in action while you're on the premises. We also are out in the community a lot, so look for our mobile adoption van. And you can look at all our pets at adoptwcac.org or call us at 790-5590. I want to thank you again for watching, and I hope to see you next time on Pet Watch.
If we could talk to the animals, learn all their languages, maybe take an animal degree. If I conferred with our furry friends, man to animal, think of the amazing repartee. If I could walk with the animals, talk with the animals, grunt and squeak and squawk with the animals, and they could talk to me.
Hello folks, I'm Bill Fitzgerald with Franklin Noon Rotary Club. The 66th Annual Franklin Rodeo is proud to present Tough Enough to Wear Pink on May 16th. Even though you may think you're too tough to wear pink, you're not. Tough enough to wear pink. Fight breast cancer with that knife. Wear your pink. Come out and show support for fighting breast cancer. May 16th, Franklin Rodeo, franklinrodeo.com.
So far as combat is concerned, I think the stress is going to be the same in any kind of a war. World War I is called a shell shock. Then we came up to World War II and it became the psychoneuroses, and then we came into Korea and it was battle fatigue, and then we came to Vietnam where PTSD really started.
I had learned about stress in flight school, but combat stress is a lot different. You can become a detriment to your unit. You can become a problem. You can become a problem at home. You need to have the strength to go and get help.
You have to make them know that if they get in trouble, there's somebody to help them, and all they got to do is reach out. There's no stigma in it.
Ask your squad leader, platoon sergeant for help. If you get shot up, you don't hesitate about going for treatment, but a lot of times you can be wounded in your mind. There's absolutely nothing wrong by bringing that to other people's attention and asking for help.